Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. And I don't want to detain the House too long, but I just want to pick up on a couple of points, because my local job centre, Bridgeton, closed on Friday. And that's a job centre that was well used and, as my honourable friend from Glasgow East pointed out, was round the corner from the Bridgeton Citizens Advice Bureau. And I spoke to the manager of Bridgeton Citizens Advice, Frank Mawson, a week last Friday, after my surgery had finished. And it was after 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and that was the first time he had that day since arriving there about 8:30 in the morning to go and get some lunch. The soup had finished in the shop. He had nothing left to get for his lunch, because he had been sitting there all day working through case after case after case, complex cases caused by the UK government. Now, people rely on the Citizens Advice Bureau in Bridgeton and other ones around the city to get that advice that they very much need and they very much depend on. And by moving it away from that local hub, from that local support network, the credit union is nearby, the library is nearby, the housing association is nearby. All of these things are right where people need them. And by moving it out of that community, sending people the nearly 3 miles, the 2 bus journeys, the 50 minutes walk if you're healthy, 50 minutes walk if you're healthy on a good day when it's not tipping down outside. Absolutely.
Thank you, Honourable Lady, for giving way. And she's made a very valid, very salient point. Whenever we fought the case for Ballynahinch Social Security Office, one of the factors that we used was the fact that the people in Ballynahinch would have to travel out. Those people who are on benefits every week are already on a very minimal financial money coming to the house. We're going to have to find themselves anything from £5 to £8 to £10 just to go and sign on. Now, that's wrong.
Absolutely, and we are fighting the fight in Glasgow about bus fare rises as well in the city, which is making it more challenging for people to get about. But since spending time outside the front of the Bridgeton Job Centre, Mr Deputy Speaker, I spoke to a woman who was on her way into the Job Centre, and Mr Deputy Speaker, she was in bits. She was crying, she was upset. She had come from her house, which was just along the street, and she'd made it to the Job Centre, and she was in fear of what she would find when she went in, because they were hassling her, they were sending her letters. She'd already been through a lot. She'd lost her daughter, and she was also a waspy woman, so she didn't even been having to look for work in the first place. But this government is sending this poor woman who had worked her whole life out to work, and she was in bits. So we comforted her as best we could. She went in. She went through that experience, she came out, and she was, understandably even more upset by the time that she left. And Mr Deputy Speaker, it would have been very hard for her not only to leave the house and go over to the job centre that was just round the corner, but to get herself up, to get on the bus, to find her way all the way up to Shettleston, to go there and then to make that journey back again afterwards. And that is a challenging journey. And it's also a challenging journey for people who have caring responsibilities as well. If you have kids to drop off at nursery, to pick up from nursery, to pick up from school, to drop off from school. If you're tending to elderly relatives who are poorly, and that's a very common occurrence for my constituents who are looking after their relatives, the burden of which falls upon women, which has not been picked up and the government's lack of a quality impact assessment. All of these things mount up on the pressures of life. The pressures of life that my constituents are feeling every single day. This government isn't trying to get them into work. It is making it harder for them to even get out the house in the morning. It is making it really challenging for people to cope. And I am very fearful, Mr Deputy Speaker, that people will just fall out of this system, that they will think it's just too hard, that they will fall back onto their friends, that they will fall into debt, that they will fall into drink and drugs and gambling and all of the other social ills that we need to see removed from our people in Glasgow so that they can progress in their lives. But this government is making it harder, Mr Deputy Speaker, for them to cope. And I want to mention as well, because it hasn't been mentioned so far, the impact on job centre staff. Now, one of the first things I heard as a candidate in Glasgow was a story from a trade union rep about a job centre employee who had been attacked by somebody with a claw hammer. And that's absolutely awful. Nobody should face that going into their work, and I absolutely condemn the situation that led somebody to go and do that. But that's the situation, and those staff need to be protected. That's when I walk into that job centre, the first person that came to see me was the security guard, and the second person was the manager, going, "What are you doing here?" Now, there's a security guard on that door for a very good reason, Mr Deputy Speaker, and sadly it's to protect the staff. And what the government is talking about outreach and flexible working and going out into communities, they have not said what the impact will be on staff, how those staff will be protected out and about in the community, and how individual constituents who are also going through very distressing situations, how they will be protected and their dignity remain intact if they are being told that they are being sanctioned in the corner of the local community centre. Now, how do we make sure that staff and our constituents are protected in those situations?
very much at this point let me in, because one of the elements we have forgot about is the actual staff. Now, in Coatbridge, 300 jobs were moved, and they were speeded up and moved quicker because we intervened. We intervened ourselves and asked the question, why are you moving these people out of houses? But in job centres alone, staff, they have a 1% pay rise. Some of these staff is going to cost up to £1,800 extra a year in travel costs. So they're asked to take a pay cut to follow the job. I hope the Minister takes this in mind.
Absolutely right. And he's spoken before as well, very movingly, about the effect on local economies of having these job centres as anchor tenants in these areas, in shopping centres, in high streets, in those local communities. And that is the impact on the local sandwich shop. It is the impact on the local shops and butchers and everything else. So there's an impact there as well, which the government is not taking into account. And I just want to finish, Mr Deputy Speaker, with a plea to the Minister. Because I know that it's going to be difficult for my constituents to make that journey. I know that it's going to be hard for them to get there and to find their way and to get there on time, because buses are not that regular, Mr Deputy Speaker. You can't rely on them turning up exactly and precisely when you need them to turn up. As it would say on Google Maps, you know, the timetable says X, and if you turn up exactly then, you can get there and get there and get there. That's just not how it works, and we know that.
I'm very grateful to her for giving way, and she's reminded me of a particular case that was raised with a constituent in Carmyle who told me that in order to get to Shettleston Job Centre from the village of Carmyle, which is fairly isolated from the rest of my constituency, she would be required to leave 3 hours early. Now, how difficult that would be if your appointment was for 9 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely, and the limitations on public transport do make it difficult for people to get where they need to be at a specific time. And in the early stages of this change that has happened, I would want a guarantee from the Minister that not one single one, not one of my constituents who arrives late due to the decisions of this government to close their job centre will be sanctioned. And I will be keeping a very, very close eye on this government and this Minister to make sure that none of my constituents end up being sanctioned because of the decisions his government has made.